There we go. Strange. Hey, everybody, it's Dave here, Darren over there. I just went through the entire intro, went through the roll and everything. And we noticed that it hadn't picked up on Facebook yet or on YouTube yet. I was wondering what the heck. But I want to welcome everybody that's here. Drewster, Chuck, Land of Ice, good to see you. The show has indeed started. Now, today, sorry about that, Drewster. I had no idea what happened there, but it is what it is, and it's stuff happens, as everyone knows in this business. All right. Today, we're looking at three themes as usual, from bust to beast, the Sam Darnold story and how it affects this season. Then we're getting into this week in Vikings lands with new notes and tidbits, and we're going to be comparing some things. And then we're getting into the game preview. Yeah, Ted Glover says, why win by 3, win 30, when you can win by 30. Exactly. SKOL Mafia, thank you for the super chat. We appreciate it. Hope all is well. And everybody that's joining us, we hope you had a wonderful, wonderful Christmas and that the holiday is still continuing on and will continue on tomorrow as we celebrate an epic beatdown of the Cheese Weasels. Now,
music to my ears.
Yes, I hope so. Well, we'll find out. Let's start off with Theme 1. Let's rank him.
Yeah, well, with Sam Darnold, Dave, this topic occurred to me because Sam Darnold's been on an immense heater since starting with the Tennessee game, ever since the 3 interception game against Jacksonville, where people were wondering about, has Sam Darnold reverted to the New York Jets and the Carolina Panthers? Sam Darnold, well, he's bounced back in a big way, and it's got a lot of people talking about him as being one of the best quarterbacks, one of the best players in the NFL. And that got me thinking about Sam Darnold's having such a great year. Where does that rank with some of the in the pantheon of top single seasons by Minnesota Vikings quarterbacks? So we're going to look at that in this first segment, and Dave and I at the end are going to, Dave will chime in and see. We'll see where he
appreciate it.
Where he stands on my opinion on things. I think, beyond, I picked out 5 single seasons by other Vikings quarterbacks in the 64-year history of this franchise, along with Darnold's season this year, and I'm going to rank them, totally subjective on my part in a lot of ways, in what I think was the top season ever. And here we're going to go. The first one I'm looking at is Fran Tarkenton, 1975. Going to run over the stats, so don't fall asleep, but 273 completions on 425 pass attempts, a 64.2% completion percentage. That was the highest of his 18-season Hall of Fame career. 2,994 passing yards, 25 TDs, 13 interceptions, Dave. The Vikings went 12-2 that season. Tarkenton won the Associated Press Offensive Player of the Year, and he was also their NFL MVP. The Vikings won the NFC Central, the NFC Central going away that season. But as all longtime fans know, unfortunately, they lost in the divisional playoffs to Dallas, 17-14 on the infamous Drew Pearson push-off play. And that is a photo that is painful for all Viking fans to watch.
That are our age and lived through it.
Yes, and those that have come along later and have read the lore, learned about it. So, that was the first season, I think the greatest Vikings quarterback season up to that point. Now we're going to jump ahead 23 years. I think another one that ranks as one of the single best was how next on the list for me is Randall Cunningham's magical 1998 season. 259 completions on 425 passes. Completion percentage of 60.9%. I was surprised it was that low. 3,704 passing yards, 34 passing TDs, 10 interceptions. We know the Vikings went 15-1 that season, number one seed in the NFC, put up the most points by an offense in NFL history at that point, which then got eclipsed the next season by the St. Louis Rams. But then, they lost in overtime in excruciating fashion to the Falcons in the NFC Championship game. But
wide left.
Wide left, but that was a season for the ages from Cunningham. Next on my list, 2004, Dante Culpepper's massive statistical season. Just monstrous. 379 completions on 548 pass attempts, a 69.2% completion percentage, by far the best of Pep's career. 4,717 passing yards, 39 passing TDs. Both of those are franchise records, by the way, and just 11 interceptions. And then Culpepper, who was always a dual threat in his early career before he had the knee injury, he also had 408 rushing yards and 2 rushing TDs to add to that statistical masterpiece of a season. So hell of a season.
And he was runner-up MVP and should have won it.
Yeah, the thing that probably the reason he didn't win is because the Vikings only went 8-8 that season. They did make the playoffs and pulled off a huge upset against that team from Wisconsin at Lambeau in the wild card round. One of my favorite Viking memories, but they were no match for the Super Bowl bound Eagles the next week when they lost 27-14. So that's number 3 on my list. Next up, got to go with Brett Favre in 2009. As the fourth one, 363 completions on 531 pass attempts, 68.4% completion percentage, also a career high for 4,200 passing yards, 33 touchdown passes, and only 7 interceptions, the fewest he threw in a starting role in his career. Vikings went 12-4 that year, won the NFC North, blew out the Cowboys in the divisional round, which is always fun. And then they lost in the NFC Championship game to those cheating New Orleans Saints in excruciating fashion in overtime. So that's one. The fifth and final, I think, season to me that goes up as one of the greatest Vikings quarterbacks, single season performances by quarterbacks, is also, I think, the most unlikely quarterback in this bunch, and that was Case Keenum's 2017 campaign. And if you remember, he started the year as Sam Bradford's backup, had to take over because Bradford's knee just couldn't handle the disintegrated on him basically. But in 15 games and only 14 starts, Keenum completed 325 of 481 passes, 67.6% completion percentage, threw for 3,547 yards, 22 TD passes, only 7 interceptions. Vikings went 13-3 that season, 11-3 in Keenum starts, and he was part of the Minneapolis Miracle with Stephon Diggs that beat the Saints in the divisional round of the playoffs. Unfortunately, the magic ended badly in Philly when we got blown out by the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. So that was the fifth one. I almost considered putting Kirk Cousins' 2019 season on the list, but I just couldn't do it, Dave. So those are, I think, the top 5. Now let's focus on Darnold's 2024 season, which still has 2 games to go. So far, Sammy Darts has completed 310 passes on 461 attempts. Completion percentage is 62.2%. 3,776 passing yards, 32 passing TDs, 11 interceptions. The Vikings are 13-2. They've clinched a playoff berth. They're fighting for a divisional title, and they're the number 1 seed in the NFC, and fighting for the number 1 seed in the NFC. We want them to be the number 1 seed in the NFC, but that hasn't happened yet. We don't know, Dave, how the season is going to end for Darnold, but his numbers with 2 games to go, I think, stack up pretty well against all of the others other than Culpepper's 2004 season. And, Tarkenton season in 75, I think now that we get kind of assessing the rankings of it, the 75 season, Tarkenton, it's kind of unfair, I think, for him to be compared to all these others because we know the era he played in. He only played in a 14-game regular season, and in an era when it was run the football and play defense. That teams just didn't pass the ball like they did now. The passing rules were completely different, even compared to 1998 when Cunningham was doing his thing. So I can't rank Tark's season as the best ever by a quarterback, but in the context of when he played, pretty damn impressive the numbers he put up that year.
They abused quarterbacks back then.
Yes,
it wasn't that quarterbacks were allowed to wear skirts and have to be put down, bed down lightly, and put a pillow under their head and a blanket so they didn't get a roughing the passer call against them.
No, it was very different for sure. Still, I couldn't put his as the top. I can't put Keenum's at the top. As an unexpected a season as it was, and a little bit low on the statistical point of things, particularly on the touchdown passes. Unexpected, a great season by him, but isn't the top for me. The Culpepper season, 2004, has me conflicted because, like, statistically, it blows everybody else's away. And no quarterback has matched that for the Vikings so far. But again, the Vikings are a 500 team. Now, a big reason for that was because the defense was horrible, and that is not Culpepper's fault. But I don't know, like, it's still, despite all the numbers, they were a 500 team. And when you look at somehow how strong the Vikings, a few of the other Vikings teams were, with quarterbacks not putting up as big numbers because they didn't have to. They had more help also. They had a better running game. They had better defense, but I just couldn't put Culpepper at the top because of the team success that the Vikings had. So to me, the best statistical season, single season by a Vikings quarterback comes down to either Favre's 2009 season or Cunningham's 1998 season. I mean, they were both seasons for the ages, and also seasons. They had seasons at advanced ages, advanced age for both of them. They were, I think, Cunningham was 36 when he had that season, and Brett Favre was 39 at the time. So, Favre played lights out that season, no doubt about it. But to me, Cunningham's 1998 season, and I admit this is subjective, to me that's the gold standard for a Vikings quarterback playing quarterback that season. Just the way his big arm was perfect, chucking it down, going for explosive big plays to Chris Carter, Randy Moss, Jake Reed, and the rest of the bunch. That offense was just so explosive. They could put up 40 and 50 points on you, it seemed, without breaking a sweat. They were the greatest offense we had ever seen up until that point. And Cunningham was a conductor of that offense. So that's why I give him the number one single season ever for a Vikings quarterback. Now, we don't know again. Darnold's season isn't over yet. But we do know that those other five guys we mentioned, despite the great seasons they had, they couldn't get the Vikings to the Super Bowl and win it. Darnold's season is not over yet. We do not know how it's going to start, but his numbers stack up pretty well with just about everybody on that list right now, other than Culpepper. And Dave, if he can get the Vikings to the Super Bowl and win it, I think we'd have to put him at number one. I don't know if you agree with that, or if you agree with how I ranked. If I missed any seasons, I don't think I did. But I don't know. I would like to get your thoughts on this.
Well, I looked at Pro Football Focus and looked at the seasons, and I found it interesting. Now, Kirk Cousins ranks high on some of the categories. I know you kept him out. I would have kept him out too, because it is what it is. Hey, Norse fans. But just so you know, when it comes to touchdowns right now, at 32, he's ranked 8th out of all the best QB seasons we've had. Culpepper's obviously number one with 39. If he gets 3 tomorrow, he ties for second place. That's all he needs, 3. And he ties for second place. with aforementioned Kirk
Yes.
Cousins. Yeah. Also looking at touchdown percentage, he ranks 6th. He is 5th in passer rating, 4th in QBR, 2nd in game-winning drives behind Kirk Cousins, because Kirk Cousins had 2 years ago the 8 game-winning drives.
Mm-hmm.
He's tied for QB wins in a season.
Yeah.
Because even Cunningham missed 2 games in that 98 season.
Mm-hmm.
So as of right now, he's tied. If he wins tomorrow, from my lips to Odin's ears, let it be so, he will take first place. He will be the only quarterback to have 14 wins in the season under QB wins. When the QB starts, QB plays, QB doesn't get hurt, gets substitute, whatever. He will be number 1. If we go 14-2 tomorrow and then 15-2, make it to the Super Bowl, with that, you got to put him at the top, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
But, but looking at all those advanced stats, passer rating, QBR, he's up there. He's one of the best quarterbacks we've had play for this whole franchise throughout its history. And he was just supposed to be the bridge guy.
That's right.
So you can't complain. You got to enjoy it. Now, what happens next year, at the end of the season and next year, that'll happen. And we'll discuss that ad nauseum. But as of right now, this dude is balling.
No doubt about it. And as you said, completely surprising, the level of play, the way he has played at the level of play he's played at. And there's no, to me anyway, there's no, this is a fluke or is this going to go away? He's consistently done this except for a couple of games this year, the Jet game and the Jaguars game were the poorest games he's played. Other than that, he's played from, he's been either very good to outstanding, and
to elite.
And that standard of play has been there all year, even with people waiting for him to fall on his face.
Mm-hmm. And you just can't deny that. And there are still people that do, because they think of Sam Darnold of the Jets. But this is a totally different situation. And people will say, well, Cunningham had 3 deep. Or Sam has Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, whoever. Yeah, it's good. Good wide receivers help make good quarterbacks, and vice versa.
Joe Burrow knows all about that.
Yes. And if they had a defense, Cincinnati would be doing a lot better too. We luckily have a defense this year. So,
anyway, it was an interesting historical research exercise here to do this, and I was happy to do it, and like you, a little bit surprised by what I found.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, that brings us to theme 2. This week in Vikings land.
Yeah, not as much news from me, but there was a few things that I was kind of looking at that piqued my interest. And first topic we're going to get to is that team from Wisconsin's decision to move on from Aaron Jones in the offseason and going with Josh Jacobs, and how that's turned out. It's turned out very well for the Vikings. It's turned out very well for the Packers. But the Packers, when they got released Aaron Jones and decided to sign Josh Jacobs, I understand what they were up to there. They were making a bet that every NFL team makes these days, and that they were betting that an aging running back in Aaron Jones, as popular and as highly productive as he was for Green Bay, that at 29 years old at the time, he had less excellent football left in him than Josh Jacobs, who's wasn't even 26 at the time that they signed him, or I think he was he's 26 now. Totally understand that, and I don't think that now that the Green Bay regrets what they did, especially because they have Jacobs signed until 2027. The Vikings only have Jones signed for this year. But when you look at how each is played and their numbers, did the Green Bay, at least in this season, have they improved their play at running back by going to Josh Jacobs? And I'm not going to use any kind of Football Outsiders or Football Outside, not but Pro Football Focus or ESPN, PFF or ESPN Plus, fancy dancy analytical stats here. I'm going to go with counting stats that you can get on Pro Football Reference, but you look at those and it's debatable who is the better running back this season and whether the Packers have really gotten a better running back in making that choice. Let's just take a look at the numbers this year with Jacobs. Here are Jacobs' numbers through 15 games: 278 carries, 1,216 yards. He's got a 4.4 yards per carry average, 13 rushing touchdowns, which is a big amount, no doubt about it. 65 of his carries have resulted in first downs, so that's 23% of his carries. He's had 300-yard games so far this season. Pro Football Reference says his rush success rate is 51%. He's also been an effective receiver, Dave. 35 catches for 340 yards and 1 touchdown catch. Now let's look at Jones' production through 15 games. He's had 233 carries, 1,446 yards, 4.5 yards per carry average, 5 rushing touchdowns. 46 of his carries have resulted in first downs. That's 19.3% of his carries. He's had 200-yard games so far. Pro Football Reference has his rush success rate at 49.9, just a smidge under 50%. Jones has always been an excellent receiver, and this year has been no different. He's got 42 catches so far for 348 yards and 2 touchdown catches right now. So, we can see that Jacobs has a big edge in rushing touchdowns, and he's been more efficient in producing first downs on his carries than Jones has. But overall, the stats are pretty similar, right? And Jacobs has been used a lot more than Jones has, and he plays behind an offensive line that I think run blocks better than the Vikings do. So again, I doubt that team from Wisconsin's general manager Brian Gutekunst or head coach Matt LaFleur regret letting go Jones and signing Jacobs. Jacobs is having an excellent year. Still, I don't think they got a huge upgrade this season in adding Jacobs and subtracting Jones. And I think it's also fair to wonder how much tread Jacobs has on his tires beyond this year, because he's already got, at 26, almost 200 more carries than Jones has. And Jones has played 2 more seasons than him. And he's going to be well over 300 carries this year and well over 300 touches. How much juice is he going to have left in the tank even late in 2025 and even in 2026? So, the Green Bay may not have they've gotten very good play from Jacobs, but I don't think they got an upgrade. But the Vikings certainly did. Compared to what Alexander Madison was giving us as the number 1 running back last year, Aaron Jones has been a big upgrade over that. The Vikings would not be 13-2 right now without Jones's contributions to this team and this offense. And so I don't know what Jones's future with the team is going to be beyond this season. I suspect that he might be a one-and-doner here in Minnesota, but we thank the Packers for letting him go and giving us the opportunity to sign him this year, because he has made a big positive difference to this team.
He has, without a doubt. I think he's done great, and depending on the cost, we may sign him the next year. And this season has proven that some of these old backs aren't as washed and over the hill as we thought. So,
no, Jones did turn 30 on December the 2nd, so that is very long in the tooth in the NFL for running backs. But Derrick Henry is also that age range. Totally different type of running back, but a lot more mileage on his tires than on Aaron Jones. Yeah, so again, the Vikings, what they do in 2025, that's something we'll discuss after the season's over. But I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility at all that the Vikings would like to bring Jones back again next year on another 1-year deal. Nothing
Better than
beyond
this
that.
guy.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think they'd want to do anything beyond that at Jones's age, but that remains to be seen what kind of market Jones will have in the offseason and if the Vikings are willing to match that market.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be
whatever
interesting.
it may be.
And the draft looks pretty good. I'd have to consult Drew and Tyler on that one in the running back class. So it should be interesting to see how it works out. But right now, Aaron Jones is a class act as a human being. We knew that. But he is doing well. And I do think he's going to be a little bit motivated for tomorrow's game.
He will be extremely motivated, but he does need some holes to run through, and we'll get to that later.
Oh, my big round bellies. All right, now on to the next topic.
Yeah, well, thinking of as time has gone on, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's decision back on November 10th or thereabouts to trade for Cam Robinson has so far looked like a great move for the Vikings. After and getting Cam Robinson as a replacement to Christian Darrisaw at left tackle, because after Darrisaw tore his MCL and his ACL, the type of thing you do not want to see when your franchise left tackle goes down with that kind of injury. But Cam Robinson has been exactly what I expected him to be. He's been a plug and play guy at left tackle, veteran, knows what he's doing, and you put him there and you don't really have to worry about him too much. Yeah, he's not the greatest run blocker, but left tackles are paid to pass protect, and Robinson does that well. On his best days, he's very good. On his worst days, he's a little bit below average, but we have not seen many below average days from him since he got to Minnesota, thankfully. And Pro Football Focus gives his pass blocking a grade in the 8 games he's been a Viking at 71.1, which is very good. Throughout the whole season, when you combine the Jags and the Vikings, they give him even a little bit better at 72.6. Again, very good. No, he's not as good as Christian Darrisaw is. Few are, but he's played a hell of a ton better than I think Quesenberry would have done, or Walter Rouse would have done, or if they had picked up somebody lesser on the trade market or the scrap heap to come in there. Cam Robinson has, I think, done exactly what we needed him to do, solidified us at left tackle and provided very good pass protection most of the time for Sam Darnold, who holds onto the ball a long time. Having said that, his last 2 games have been not up to the standard of the previous 6, I think. He had committed 4 penalties against the Bears, struggled with penalties there for the most part. He just flat out struggled against Seattle last week, and Pro Football Focus gave him a 45.7 pass blocking grade, which is horrible. And so that ain't good. And as we get into the final part of the season and into the playoffs, there's no easy games anymore, Dave. There's no gimmies. The competition is going to be stiff, and we need Cam Robinson starting tomorrow to be playing his best football of 2024. I know he's just one of 22 starters on the team, and it takes a full team effort to get a guy get a team to where we want them to go. But I find, to me, it's going to be hard for the Minnesota to go on a deep playoff run and get to the Super Bowl and win it if their left tackle is playing the kind of football that Cam Robinson has played the last 2 games. So we need Cam Robinson to pick it up. I believe that he can and he will, but the last 2 games are not at his previous standard, and they can't be the standard going forward either.
Mm-hmm. And you got to remember, playoffs is extra bonus money for them, especially if they win. So it's a little
It sure is.
motivation. Be good, go far, earn extra pay.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. Now, I agree. I think the Robinson pickup by Kwesi was one of the best in this season because how big Darrisaw is to this team, and that loss of that was huge. And it was, last second, oh my God, we got to find somebody. Boom. And they got somebody. And I thought it was brilliant.
Yep.
Hey, Kwesi in the pro department has been outstanding. Drafts, a little lacking, improving, hopefully. But on the pro side, just outstanding. Now, switching topics once again, improvement, like we talked about, not only in the draft, but on the field with some play. We're seeing a few less of these. However, Cam Robinson has had a couple of bad games full of yellow flags. Stupid, shoot yourself in the foot penalties.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about penalties here, Dave, because it seemed to me throughout the season, just watching all the games and but not tallying things up totally, that the Vikings are doing a pretty good job of avoiding taking penalties themselves and also forcing penalties from their opponents. And so I decided to tally it up a little bit, and here's what I found. The Vikings this year have had accepted penalties on them 97 in total for 768 yards. That's the total amount of accepted yardage, penalty yardage that has been assessed against the Vikings.
768. Yeah.
No. Yeah. Our opponents have had 126 penalties accepted on them, and that's cost them 1,085 yards. So that's a 317-yard difference in the penalty yardage that has cost our opponents compared to us. That seems like might not seem like a lot to some people, but over a course of a season, it sure seems like a lot to me. And because when you look at those yardage, that opponents are being assessed, that's costing them in two areas. It's costing them on offense. It's causing them to lose yardage on offense. So it's killing drives and forcing them to punt the ball or settle for a field goal instead of a touchdown. And if they're committing it on the defense, they're extending Vikings drives and giving us first downs, like we saw last week against Seattle, face mask penalty on that game-winning drive. So it's giving us first downs, extending out drives, and allowing us to score more points and hopefully more touchdowns. As the season goes on and the games get tighter, that is something that could be an advantage for the Vikings. And the Vikings they weren't so great at this at the beginning of the season. They've gotten better as it's gone on. In the first 7 games, we only had less penalties called on us and less yardage assessed in 4 of our first 7 games. In the last 8, we've had less penalties and yardage assessed on us compared to our opponents, 6 of 8 games. And you could say that this was luck and all of that, but the Vikings, again, have been getting progressively better at this, and it doesn't matter what referee crew we have from game to game. And I think you have to give credit to Kevin O'Connell and his coaching staff and the players for improving on this and making us a more disciplined team, and a team that is not committing penalty after penalty after penalty in games. And again, in the playoffs with very tightly, evenly matched teams, games are going to be tight. This could be a not so small advantage for the Vikings if they can continue to be the team that commits less penalties than their opponent does.
Mm-hmm. With kill the self-inflicted ones and then gain on the DPIs, right?
Yes.
Our receivers have more yardage gain through DPI than I think any other club. Mm-hmm. And it's an advantage. And as long as you're not lining up wrong, false starting, it's putting you in an advantage because everybody else still is to some extent. Now, in the playoffs, we're getting the better and better teams, and they're going to also try to limit those things as well. So we'll find out.
Yeah, and in the 9 games where we have had less penalties called on us and less yardage assessed on us than the opponents, we're 9-0. in those games, as opposed to the 6 where we have had more penalties called on us and more yardage assessed. We're still, in the black, 4-2, but we're not undefeated. So it's something that, again, one of those sometimes little things. I wouldn't say it's overlooked, but if you can do that consistently, it's going to help you win, just like getting more turnovers than your opponent does and not committing turnovers and in general. So something to watch for. We've been very good at it the last 8 games in particular.
Good. Now, the last bit of news in This Week in Vikings Land came out this morning. Jared Allen has made the finalist list to go into the Hall of Fame this year. I think it's the 3rd year he's made the final list. It will be decided, I think, Super Bowl weekend. They'll be announced.
Yes.
And hopefully, keep your fingers crossed, he makes it. Not some schlub who can wait a little bit longer, makes it ahead of him. So we'll see.
We will. I suppose it's always a tough field, but he's got Terrell Suggs is up for it for the first year this year. Luke Kuechly is up for it for the first time this year. Antonio Gates is up for it again this year. These are new guys. You've got Allen, who's eligible. Guys like Rod Woodson, who is still eligible, and people are stumping for him. Should get him. A few others. So I think it is a tough field for Allen. Does he have the bona fides other than a Super Bowl title to be in the Hall of Fame? 100%. But we know that the lack of a Super Bowl title, and in Allen's case, a lack of a Super Bowl title it costs you in amongst the voters who maybe didn't follow the Vikings closely throughout the career. Like Eli Manning is got in as a finalist his first time. He would never led the NFL in any major statistical passing category, but he won 2 Super Bowls and beat the Patriots both times. That's going to get you a lot of brownie points.
Yes, it will. So, well, that's the end of Theme 2. And what follows Theme 2? Theme 3.
Theme 3, game preview.
And here we go. The game.
Like you said, epic NFC North showdown, Dave. Clash of NFC North Titans, NFC Titans, NFL Titans, however you want to put it. These are 2 very good teams. Looking over that team from Wisconsin season this year, it's given me 2023 vibes. Not quite the same, but pretty close. If you remember in 2023, the Packers had Jordan Love. They decided to move on from Aaron Rodgers, put Jordan Love in at quarterback, and it didn't go very well at the start. Love, turned the ball over a fair bit, was inaccurate, and the Packers struggled defensively. They started the season 3-6, and then the team caught fire. Love caught fire, went on a big time streak at the end of the season. They won 6 of their last 8 games, made the playoffs, won a playoff game quite easily in Dallas, almost beat the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. And if we remember, as part of that streak, they faced our Minnesota Vikings on, was it December 31st? And they whooped our ass at the US Bank Stadium. 2024 has felt a little bit similar, and this was whereas not as bad of a start for them. Love got hurt in the first game. They started 3-2, didn't look very impressive. Love seemed inaccurate. He wasn't completely healthy, was throwing lots of interceptions. The Vikings beat the Packers at Lambeau Field again. And then now, as the season has gone on, they've righted the ship. The defense is responding to Jeff Hafley, the new defensive coordinator. Love is playing much, much better. The running game is rolling, and they're 11. They clinched the playoff spot last week by beating the Saints. They're 11-4. They're looking very, very good coming into the US Bank Stadium on the second last regular season game of the year. So why, if these seasons for the Packers feel similar, why should we as Vikings fans feel optimistic this time around that we aren't going to get beat down? Well, the answer is it's not. The 2023 Minnesota Vikings were in a much different state than this team is. Last year, we lost 4 of our last 5 games going into this game. We couldn't figure out who our quarterback was going to be. Kevin O'Connell decides against the Packers to start Jaron Hall, the rookie. Hall, that was not the right decision. Hall wasn't ready. He played terrible, gets benched at halftime. They go to Nick Mullins. It's too late. The game was over by then. That is not the situation where the Vikings are facing this time around. We got Sam Darnold at quarterback, playing as good as any quarterback in the NFL right now. The defense is better than it was last year and deeper. And, we've got a running game that is fairly effective. Much better matchup. Green Bay is a formidable opponent. DVOA thinks they're better than the Vikings right now. They have that team from Wisconsin with the 3rd best DVOA in the NFL. We're considered the 6th best. But this is still 2 very good teams, 2 evenly matched teams, and I expect we're going to have a very tough, close bloodbath tomorrow for the Vikings. The keys in this one to the bloodbath going in our way, I think, one is that I said it the last game, I'll say it again. Josh Jacobs, who we talked about earlier, is having a very good season. But the Vikings, he's a tough guy to bring down. The Vikings just have to tackle well in this one, and they have to make a concerted effort to have multiple tacklers rallying to the ball. They've got they did a very good job
familiar.
of this.
Where did you say that last?
Oh, it was when we were playing I think every game, but when they played
you said it last night.
Yes, I did on the Vikings Report with Drew and Ted.
That's right, and Chris. Don't forget Chris.
That's right, and Chris. And I was very happy and honored to be on that show, as you were as well, Dave.
Yes, I was.
And you guys should check that show out
after this
if you didn't watch it last night. After this one, but I think that tackling is going to be very, very big, particularly with Jacobs. You saw in the New Orleans game, but you've seen it in other games as well, where he's breaking tackle after tackle after tackle. The Vikings have to bring Josh Jacobs down, and Wilson and Brooks, the other running backs, on first contact, not second or third contact, so that a 2-yard run doesn't turn into an 8-yard or 9-yard run or longer. And the same thing goes for the wide receiver screens that the quick passing game that the Packers love to run. Their tight ends and wide receivers who don't get the ball are very good at blocking on those plays. And so a pass that's 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage turns into a 10-yard game consistently because they run that very well. And again, to combat that, the Vikings got to have numbers to the ball on those screens. They've got to be able to beat the blockers, and take down the receivers, the running backs, who's ever got the ball, again, on first contact. Because if we are, and I said it last night on Vikings Report, if the Packers are in second and short and third and short consistently, it's going to be tough for the Vikings defense to get stops and stay off the field and stop the Packers from generating a lot of points. So big, it's going to be very important for guys like Harrison Phillips, the big round bellies up front at the line of scrimmage, Jonathan Bullard, Jalen Redmond, and Jerry Tillery, Blake Cashman in the linebacker role, Ivan Pace, who we are getting back. These are going to be very, very important guys to hold the line of scrimmage, create some penetration, and prevent those big positive gains that the Packers like to get in the run game and in the screen game. That's going to be big. If we can get them in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, create some negative plays as well, create some penalties with some false starts, that's going to help us a lot. Because I don't think we're going to completely stop the Packers offense the way they're playing right now. They're like Detroit. They're very good on the pass and the run. But I think that's going to be key. And Jordan Love doesn't get sacked a lot, Dave. He's only been sacked 11 times this year. We only sacked him once at Lambeau Field, but we did harass him a lot. And it's going to be important to do that again tomorrow. Even if Grenard and Van Ginkel and Dallas Turner and Patrick Jones do not get him to the ground a lot, make him throw early, get him off his spot, get him hurried. That could lead to throws that are a bit inaccurate, aren't where he wants it to be, where his receivers want it to be, and can lead to some incompletions or less than stellar gains. So that's going to be key for the defense in this one. Easy to say, hard to do. I think offensively, line of scrimmage again is going to be key. you talk about it all the time, Dave, but we always have concerns about. We talked about Cam Robinson and his struggles the past couple of games. He has to play well, but so do the interior, Dalton Reisner, Garrett Bradbury, Blake Brandel. They've got to win the battle against the Packers interior guys, Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, TJ Slayton, and a host of other guys. They've got to be able to communicate and pick up the stunts and games that Jeff Hafley is going to run, because that the Packers defense, its pass rush and its run defense has become much more dangerous and effective under Jeff Hafley the past 6-7 games than they were previous. Last time, if you can give Sam Darnold time, they just need to give him just enough, that 2.5 seconds he needs to allow those longer plays to develop, because I'm not really impressed with the Packers secondary. Jair Alexander won't be playing tomorrow. Keyshawn Nixon is a good corner, but Eric Stokes, I don't think much of. Carrington Valentine, I don't think much of. They're going to play a lot. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. If Darnold has the 2.5 seconds and a bit more to throw the ball, he is going to find those guys for big gains, and that crew is going to eat tomorrow if they can do that. But they got to do that. Josh Oliver as a blocking tight end is going to be big in that pass protection side of things too,
as well.
Yes, and pass catch. And on the running side too, at Lambeau we had 120 yards rushing, which was pretty good. And Aaron Jones had some holes to run through. Offensive line, guys like Josh Oliver on the run blocking side of things, Johnny Munt, they got to be able to hold the line, open some holes for Aaron Jones so that he can be an effective runner. He doesn't have to run for 150 yards, but he does have to be a threat and be effective and get positive gains. If we can't do that, it's going to lead to us passing a bit too much and being forced in too many obvious passing situations. Packers will be able to pin their ears back a bit more and dial up, some different blitzes and schemes that could confuse our blockers, and it's going to make a tougher sledding for the Vikings offense. But I like where this Vikings offense is going, Dave. You look at the last 5 games: 30 points, 23 points, 42 points, 30 points, 27 points. They are playing really well right now when they have to play really well. And I believe that they're going to play really well tomorrow, and they have to, because we can't have a bunch of drives where we're not scoring points with the way the Packers offense is playing right now. We have to score points ourselves. Brian Flores and the Vikings defense could play a really good game tomorrow and still give up 24 to 27 points. So we've got to look at that.
We're averaging as 30.4 over those 5 games. Let's raise that. Let's keep it minimum. Make it the minimum. Right? We talk about the Mendoza line in the past on the defense, and Flores is going to try to keep that. And for those that don't know, that started way back with Good Morning Gallahorn. And Drew brought up the Mendoza line. It was actually a Zimmer thing. He felt if his defense could keep the opponent at 17 points or less, the Vikings would win the game. Flores has pretty much adopted something very similar. If you can keep it at 17 points or less, there's a most likely chance you're going to win. Now, on the opposite side, KOC should be, screw 17 points, hey, defense, do less than 17, but we're going balls to the wall. We want 30 plus.
Mm-hmm. You sure do. And they can do it. But I think line of scrimmage is where if we win that battle, that's going to allow us to get that 30 points and have the offense rolling like it has been the past 5 games. Yeah, there's been a few lulls here and there, like second half against Seattle last week, but you still got a very productive Vikings offense with Sam Darnold at the controls, throwing to Justin Jefferson, who always has big games, it seems, at home. And this is another one where he could have a big game. Again, I feel, Northwest, you do have to watch out for Edgerton Cooper. He's coming on as a rookie. And I think that actually Quay Walker being out is not a big deal for the Packers defense, because I don't think Quay Walker is one of their better defensive players. He's a starter, but him being out means Cooper is probably going to play more. And Cooper has been playing better than Walker lately. So I don't know if that's a plus for us with Walker being out or not. We shall see. But, the Vikings, since Matt LaFleur became the Packers head coach in 2019, we have never swept the Packers in the season series. I think tomorrow we're going to get that first sweep. And the first sweep the Vikings have had of the Packers since 2017, because that's how confident I feel about this team, the way they're playing, even with the Packers, as I said, playing really good football right now as well and being a formidable opponent. And some people think that they're a better team than us. I don't believe that, and tomorrow I think the Vikings are going to show it.
Mm-hmm. And it very well could. And I'm already starting to see over on their side of the house where their fans are talking about, should we limit reps for some of our players like Josh Jacobs, etc., and just settle for going into the playoffs better rested? And it's going to be interesting if they do that. I would doubt it. They're playing the division. Hey, if you want to rest, do it against Chicago next week, not against the Vikings this week. You don't want to hand the Vikings a victory just because you're resting players, I wouldn't think. But hey,
now they may rest them like they did last week with Jacobs if the game is well in hand one way or the other.
Well, yeah, and we'll do the same.
But
no, they're talking about doing it just because they've locked up the playoff spot. They're not going to win the division, so rest them. Where it's unlikely they're going to win the division.
They still have a shot at being the top wild card. The number 5 wild card. So I think that's something to play for. Although I think that the NFC playoff picture, there will be no easy games in the wild card round or any round. The way I'm seeing, the Rams, I think, are going to make it, and they're playing really well. The Commanders, they got a rookie quarterback, but they're dangerous. There just isn't an easy team that's going to be in this playoff that you can say, yeah, we want to play them. Right. The way I'm looking at it right now.
Falcons, maybe.
Yeah, Falcons maybe, but if you have to play them on the road I don't know.
That's just it. You don't want to go to their house and have to win. You don't want to have to win 3 on the road, if at all possible. Now, we proved we could do that this year, but against lesser quality talent.
Yes.
We'd rather win out and win the division and the NFC and then keep everything at the bank, I would think. That would be my preference if I had a vote. So we'll see. James, yes, Packers offense ranks 4, Vikings number 12. Yeah, I agree. We talked about DVOA. You're ahead of us.
Talking about DVOA?
You're ahead of us in team DVOA. That's fine.
We also have to remember that the DVOA, the teams that get ranked higher and lower, it doesn't always work like that in the games. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So you can be ranked wherever you want to be ranked, but when it's as close as it is for a lot of those teams, you cannot say, oh, DVOA, Packers are 3, Vikings are 6. Obviously, Green Bay is going to win this game. It doesn't work like that.
Sure. And we noticed this week, we started out as favored betting wise, and then it went to the Packers. Now it's back to us, which was interesting. So, but it's relatively close. It's only 2.5 points.
Yeah, so. It's close, and I'd be very surprised if this game is not very close. Come down to the last couple of drives in the fourth quarter.
Yep. So, hey. It is what it is. So, it's yo-yos? What's yo-yos? I've never heard of that. Advanced.
He's calling us yo-yos.
Oh, James.
I'm not sure.
But
Well, yeah, I'm not sure what he isn't saying, but if you're going by points scored, I believe that Minnesota is 9th in points scored right now, whereas the Packers are 4th or 5th. So I don't know where he's getting ranked 12th
Right.
at as far as offense goes. Maybe it's some other metric. Don't know.
James, we'll see tomorrow. We'll see.
Yeah.
We beat you the first time. We can do it again.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that brings us to the end of the show. Now, tomorrow, live at the 2-minute warning, I'll go live again. We can join everybody watching. I don't have to stream any more football games because they'll be live over the air, which is wonderful. And which means no delay. Come with me on those final 2 minutes. We'll react together. Hopefully we'll be celebrating. Hopefully it'll be in the bag by the time we hit the 2-minute warning. And we'll celebrate our 14th win of the season. And that'll be absolutely fantastic. But we shall see. Any last words, everybody?
Well, we didn't get to it, but there was a report today. I did want to mention it about Calais Campbell. It looks like he may get released by the Miami Dolphins, and that the Vikings are expected to be one of his suitors. Interesting. It sounds like Campbell was close to getting traded at the deadline, but Mike McDaniel convinced him to not accept a trade and stick on with Miami until. But McDaniel told him that whenever we get eliminated from the playoff contention, we'll release you because we know you want to make a Super Bowl run, and we'll give you that opportunity. The Dolphins might get eliminated tomorrow, or if they lose their next game this week, in which case Campbell may get.
Tua's already been listed as out.
Yeah. So and if that happens, if this is true, Campbell would get released, and then he would be able to sign with whomever, and it's expected that the Lions also will be in on that. So interesting. Would I take 38-year-old Calais Campbell on this team? Absolutely, because he's been playing very well this year.
Oh, cool. We'll look forward to that if that's the case. We'll see. Let's see. Packers are destined to end the Chiefs dynasty, or we'll have a deal with that shit longer. Sorry, y'all. Good season. Thanks, Max. Appreciate it. Keep up with your delusions. We'll support them. With that, what do we say, buddy?
We say SKOL Vikings, baby. And thanks for watching. Even James and
Max. SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite podcast aggregator. Darren and Dave, thank you for watching this episode of Two Old Bloggers. We look forward to seeing you on every show on the new Vikings First and SKOL. You can find our podcast as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Sports takes for the fan, from the fan. SKOL, everybody!